Why did no one notice her until the moment everything stopped? The flight deck of the USS Sentinel roared beneath the Persian Gulf sun, a steel city in motion. Jet engines screamed, crews shouted over headsets, chains clinked taut against the deck as aircraft were moved like chess pieces. Every step, every shout, every signal calculated, choreographed, seamless. Until it was. The first warning was sound. A hollow clang, sharp, metallic, distinct enough that even seasoned deckhands paused mid-step. Heads turned just as a 20 ammunition drum, 200 pounds of steel and explosive potential, broke free from its chain and began to roll. It thundered across the slick deck, gathering speed. Sailors shouted, scattering. Petty Officer Third Class David Wilson stood in its path, frozen, 22 years old, 3 months into his first deployment. The color drained from his face as the drum gained momentum, unstoppable, death rolling straight toward him. He didn't move. But she did. Morgan Riley abandoned her cart and sprinted, boots striking sparks, body low, eyes fixed. She crossed the slick deck with impossible speed, launched herself into a controlled slide. The world narrowed to impact. Her shoulder slammed into the side of the drum. The collision reverberated through the deck like a gunshot. Pain exploded through her arm, but she held. Legs braced, muscles screaming, fighting momentum with everything she had left. "Move," she shouted. Wilson's eyes were wide, empty, frozen in place. She shoved him. The drum screeched, slowing, stopping inches from where it would crush him. The torn securing chain snapped tight. Morgan pulled Wilson clear as silence crashed across the deck. 3 heartbeats. No one breathed. Then someone whispered. Because as she dove, her sleeve had ridden back, and something had flashed beneath the harsh deck lights. A circle of bronze and black stitched into the inside of her uniform sleeve, not where any official decoration should be. Bronze center, black ring, an eagle, its wings reversed. The boy she'd saved stared at it, then another sailor, then another, eyes widening, breath caught. It was a medal that didn't exist. Stories whispered in bars on bases at midnight spoke of it. A decoration given only to operators who never came home, the kind who died on missions that would never be admitted in official histories, the kind erased. Ghosts. The air changed. The roar of jet engines felt distant now, thinner, charged. "Where did you get that?" The voice cut through the tension like a blade. Admiral James stood 10 yards away. His weathered face betrayed nothing. 58 years old, 35 years of service, and eyes that missed nothing. Morgan's throat tightened. She pulled her cuff down slowly, covered the medal, pretended it was nothing, though she knew better. Had seen it, and was not the kind of man to let mysteries breathe on his deck. He started walking toward her. The crowd parted instinctively as if drawn back by gravity. His boots clanged on the steel. Wind whipped his cap, but his gaze never left hers. Morgan wanted to vanish, wanted to be invisible again, but her boots felt welded to the deck. He stopped 3 feet from her, close enough she could see the salt etched into the seams of his uniform. "Ma'am," he said, voice sharp enough to cut through jet wash, "hold your position." Her heart jolted. No one called her ma'am here, not to a loader. Her hands gripped the cart's handles until her knuckles blanched. Her face remained blank, the only armor she had left. "Roll your sleeve up," ordered. "Sir," she said evenly, "I have a delivery to make. And I have an order to give. Sleeve, now." Motion on the deck seemed to stall. Jets idled, crew turned. Morgan's jaw locked. She looked at the waiting FA-18, then back at. Her hand twitched toward her cuff, then stopped. "With respect, Admiral," she said quietly, "that's personal property. I know exactly what it is." "Then you know it doesn't concern the chain of command." His eyes sharpened. "Roll it up." She pulled the cuff down. tension heavier than the ammunition she carried pressed between them. Stepped closer, voice dropping for her alone. "Come with me." There was no point refusing. She followed. His quarters reflected the man. Austere, ordered, no personal photos, just a Navy cross and silver star in simple frames. The only luxury, a small model of his first command, a destroyer that had seen action in the Gulf War. He shut the hatch behind them. The sound echoed like judgment. Then he pulled something from his pocket, a small velvet box worn at the edges. He opened it. Inside sat an exact duplicate of her medal, mounted on a plaque, bronze center, black ring, eagle with wings reversed. "Tell me where you got it," he said. "You already know," she answered. "I want to hear it from you." "That's not going to happen." Studied her face, not a twitch, not a blink, stone. "The last time I saw one of these," he said slowly, "it was handed to a widow at a closed casket funeral. Every recipient was listed as KIA. Every reported recipient," she corrected softly. His eyes narrowed. "You're saying you survived that op?" "I'm saying nothing." Silence pressed like weight. "If that's true," said at last, "you're carrying a secret that could tear open more than one sealed file in D.C. Then maybe it's better if we leave it sealed." He tapped the medal in its velvet box. "I can't do that, not without knowing exactly who I've got on my deck." "If you think I'm a danger," she said flatly, "lock me up. Otherwise, let me get back to work." Her voice didn't waver, but inside she was shaking. She had lived years trying not to say these words, trying not to give anyone a reason to notice. Closed the box, slid it back into his pocket. "Fine, but hear me. If something happens out here, anything, you'll get one chance to prove whether you deserve that medal. Don't waste it." Her chest tightened. That was the last thing she wanted, a chance. Because a chance meant disaster. And disaster meant people she couldn't save. She turned to the hatch. "One more thing," added. "Phantom Echo, Afghanistan, 2012. Morgan froze. 8 operators," he continued. "High-value target extraction, no survivors." He paused, except there was one wasn't there. Morgan pushed through the hatch without answering. Her footsteps faded down the passageway. Stood alone, staring at the closed door. "Ghost team," he whispered. "They weren't ghosts after all." Morgan moved through the ship like a shadow. Head down, shoulders hunched, making herself smaller. It was a skill she had perfected long before the Navy, growing up in a house where being noticed meant being hurt. The Navy just gave her a legitimate reason to disappear. But now, everywhere she went, eyes followed. Whispers trailed her like wake in water. "Bronze center, black ring. That's not a real medal. Has to be some knockoff." You think the Admiral would stop her over a fake? By nightfall, the story had transformed, as stories do on ships. Some said she was part of an experimental female combat unit that vanished in Afghanistan. Others whispered she'd been on a black ops so classified even the Pentagon didn't know. The darker rumors claimed she hadn't survived. Not really. That she was a ghost walking in a borrowed body. The worst part was, she didn't correct any of it. Because the truth was no safer than the lies. That night she lay in her rack, eyes open in the dark. The ship hummed around her, a living thing, steel groaned beneath the weight of war machines. 90,000 tons of naval supremacy pushing through black water. She pressed her hands into her thighs, steadying herself. But the memories bubbled up anyway, unstoppable, like blood from old wounds. The Hindu Kush Mountains, 2012. 8 operators, call sign Ghost Team. A mission to capture or kill fared. A high-ranking Taliban commander with ties to Al-Qaeda leadership. 30 seconds to insertion. Captain Robert Mitchell's voice echoed in her skull. Calm, unshakable, 34 years old with eyes that crinkled at the corners when he smiled and steady hands that never shook, not even when stitching wounds in the field. "Riley, you're on point once we're down. Watch our six." Her breath caught. She'd been the team's weapons specialist, trained to disassemble an AK-47 blindfolded, to tell the difference between Chinese and Russian ammunition by smell alone. She could rig demolitions with steady hands while bullets cracked overhead. They'd set down in a narrow valley just before dawn. Thin air, bitter cold, rocky ground that shredded boots. They moved like shadows, 8 shapes gliding silent toward a compound clinging to the mountainside. It had gone perfectly. Too perfectly. No guards where there should have been guards. No sentries on the... Her neck prickled. "Something's wrong," she'd whispered to Mitchell. "This feels..." The first explosion cut her words in half. Then the gunfire came, coordinated, merciless. Not the sporadic fire of surprised defenders, this was an ambush, an execution. They'd been expected. Went down first, chest torn open. Williams, their medic, shot through the throat as he crawled toward him. "Fall back," Mitchell had shouted. "Rally Point Alpha, move." But there was nowhere to go. Surrounded, kill zone, fire from every side. Cooper screamed as an RPG detonated too close, and Martinez made a final stand behind jagged rock, buying seconds, until silence claimed them too. And Mitchell, God, Mitchell. He'd shoved her into a crevice as bullets ripped into his back. "Live," he'd gasped, blood bubbling on his lips. "That's an order, Lieutenant. Someone has to make it back." His hand squeezed hers, then went slack. Morgan's eyes opened in the dark. The ship thrummed beneath her, alive, indifferent. She reached under her pillow and pulled out the small pouch. Inside, the metal, bronze center, black ring, eagle with wings reversed. Given only to operators who died on missions that never officially existed. Except she hadn't died. And that was the problem. Why was the Admiral watching her like that? The first drill came at 300, general quarters. The shriek of alarms ripped through the decks like a blade. Most of the crew stumbled bleary-eyed from their racks. Morgan was already moving. Years of combat had trained her body to wake fully in an instant. Sleep had never been safe. Not in Afghanistan, not since. She was at Weapons Magazine 4 before the alarm had even faded. Wilson was there, fumbling through the emergency protocol checklist, pages trembling in his hands. "Page 3, Section 4, she said, brushing past him. "Start with the electrical isolation procedures." He blinked at her. "How did you know?" "Because you had the same look when that drum was rolling at you," she said without looking up. "Paralysis comes from uncertainty. Focus on the next action, not the whole problem." Her tone wasn't harsh, just precise, like a blade honed down to its edge. Wilson swallowed, nodded, and turned pages. The drill lasted 45 minutes. When it ended, Morgan glanced up toward the catwalks and froze. Stood above, watching. Expression unreadable. Hands clasped behind his back like a statue carved from salt and old storms. Their eyes met, just for a heartbeat. Then she turned away. The second drill came 3 hours later, fire in the engine room. Morgan was redirected there by a frantic senior chief. Chaos ruled, shouting, conflicting orders, fire crews tripping over each other. Morgan didn't think she moved. "Port team, establish a perimeter with the Co. 2 units," she ordered, her voice slicing through the noise. "Starboard team, prep the AFFF hoses but hold until electrical isolation is confirmed. Engineering, kill the power to panel 6 Bravo now." They obeyed. Not because they knew her. Because her tone left no space for hesitation. The simulated fire was contained in record time, was there again, watching, no attempt to hide it this time. The third drill came at midday. Security breach, unknown intruders. Morgan found herself near the ship's secure communications center when the alarm sounded. She flattened against a corner with an unobstructed down two passages. Low stance, elbows tight, weight balanced on the balls of her feet. It was automatic muscle memory from 1,000 close-quarters drills. A security team thundered past, their movements sloppy, exposing themselves to every angle. Morgan bit her tongue to keep from correcting them. One of them, an ensign barely out of the academy, noticed her. "Hey, you loader, what are you doing?" "Following security protocol, sir." From that position, "It seemed sensible," she said blandly. "Good visibility, protected position." His eyes narrowed. "That's an advanced CQB stance. Where'd you learn it?" She didn't blink. "Luck, sir." He looked unconvinced but moved on. Morgan exhaled slowly. She slipped, revealed another piece of who she really was. Was collecting those pieces, testing her, watching how she moved when the mask cracked. And she was failing at invisibility. That night she walked a rarely used passage deep inside the ship. Auxiliary machinery spaces, humming in the dark. A place few sailors ventured unless something broke. She stopped at a brass plaque mounted on the bulkhead commemorating the ship's commissioning, pressed her shoulder to the cool metal, closed her eyes. 2 deep breaths, her reset ritual. A reminder who she was now, not who she had been. Interesting choice for reflection. She didn't startle. She'd heard his gait before he spoke. "Just passing through, Admiral," she said quietly. "3 drills," he said. 3 chances to observe you. You know what I saw." She stayed silent. "I saw someone who anticipates problems before they appear, who naturally assumes command in crisis, who sees angles others don't." He stepped closer. "I saw someone pretending to be less than they are." "With respect, sir," she said, eyes on the deck, "you're reading too much into standard emergency responses." "Am I?" His tone sharpened like snapping cable. "Your positioning during the security drill was textbook special operations. Your fire containment was straight out of advanced tactical doctrine, and your response time to general quarters beat my SEAL detachment." Her mouth went dry. "What do you want from me?" she asked. "The truth." She shook her head. "The truth is classified above your pay grade." "Nothing is above my pay grade on my ship," said steel in his voice. "I have 200 aircraft and 5,000 souls aboard. If something or someone is on this vessel, I will know it. I'm just a loader." Lieutenant Morgan Riley, Ghost Team, Weapons Specialist, officially killed in action, Operation Phantom Echo 2012. The name hit her like shrapnel. Inside, alarm bells screamed. He'd found her. "Either you start talking," said, "or I call the Pentagon. You'll have a JSOC investigation team on this ship inside 24 hours. Silence stretched between them, thick, suffocating. Finally she spoke. "After Afghanistan, I was given options: medical discharge or continued service under different parameters." "A cover identity," said. She nodded once. "Few people know I survived. Fewer know where I am. That's by design, for my safety and theirs." "Who authorized this?" CIA Director William Harper, JSOC Commander Westfield. It goes to the top. Recognition flickered in his eyes. Those names carried weight. "Why this?" he asked. "Why bury a decorated special operator as an ammunition loader?" Her voice barely carried. "Because I asked for it." "You asked to be buried," he said, "to push carts instead of leading missions." "Yes." Studied her, searching for the lie, finding none. "What happened in those mountains, Riley? What did you see that was worth erasing your existence?" Something cracked in her face, just for a second, enough. "I saw my entire team die," she whispered, "because someone sold us out." His expression hardened. "I saw the best men I've ever known cut down in an ambush waiting specifically for us. and I don't know who was responsible. You think it was an inside job? I know it was. Her voice sharpened to steel. Only a handful of people knew our insertion point target timeline. Someone at the highest level betrayed us. Until I know who, I stay dead. Absorbed this, slow, careful. And the medal, he asked. Why keep it? Why risk someone seeing? Her hand moved unconsciously to her sleeve. Because they deserve to be remembered, even if only by me. Something in his expression softened, just slightly, the kind of softness that lives beside grief. The bond forged in combat, he said quietly, is stronger than blood. He met her eyes. Your secret is safe with me, for now, but understand this, on my ship nothing stays buried forever. He turned to go, then paused. And Riley, those drills weren't just tests. We've received credible intelligence about threats to carrier groups in this region. If something happens, I expect you to be who you really are, not who you're pretending to be. His footsteps faded down the corridor. Morgan stayed against the plaque, its metal cold through her sleeve. Be who you really are. The problem was, after years of hiding, she wasn't sure she knew anymore. Whispers followed her everywhere now. The incident with the ammo drum had cracked her anonymity. The drills had widened the cracks. In the mess, conversations died when she entered. On the flight deck, crew chiefs lingered near her station, pretending to check tie-down chains just to watch her hands. Even the officers were watching. Lieutenant Commander Hayes cornered her by the hangar bay. Heard you handled yourself during that fire drill, he said lightly, too lightly. Says you deployed the teams like you've been running drills for years. Lucky guess, sir, she said. I don't believe in luck, Hayes replied. I believe in experience. His eyes flicked to her hidden sleeve, then he walked away. She felt another piece of her cover fall away like flacking paint. Invisibility had kept her alive. Visibility could kill her. That evening, Wilson found her in a quiet corner of the hangar, inventorying 20 rounds. His face was set, like he'd been working himself up to this. They're calling you the ghost now, he said. She didn't look up. Who is? Everyone, the deck crew, the air wing, even some of the officers. He hesitated. Because of that medal, someone said it's given to operators who die on classified missions. Her hand stilled. He caught the flicker and pressed on. Why are you hauling ammunition, Riley? Why hide? She looked at him, really looked at him. 22. Honest eyes. The kind that still believed people told the truth if you just asked. Some questions, she said quietly, don't have answers you want to hear. Try me. Her voice dropped. Can you handle knowing things that keep you awake at night? That make you question everything you've been told about who we are and what we do, because once you know, you can't unknow. I already can't unsee how you moved on that deck, he said. That wasn't training, that was combat. She turned away. Let it go, Wilson, for both our sakes. She started to walk, but his words stopped her cold. My uncle was a ranger, he said. 3 tours in Iraq. He came home different, wouldn't talk about it, wouldn't let anyone close. One morning we found him in the garage. Morgan turned slowly. The note he left said, the weight was too much to carry alone. Wilson's voice was steady, but his eyes shone. I'm not saying I understand what you've been through. I'm saying maybe you don't have to carry it alone. Her defenses wavered, just for a moment, then rebuilt themselves brick by brick. I'm sorry about your uncle, she said softly, but this isn't the same. Isn't it? He asked. I see how you watch every exit, how you keep your back to walls, how you flinch at certain sounds. His voice gentled. You're still at war. Morgan stepped closer, voice just a breath. Listen carefully. I appreciate what you're trying to do, but you need to stop for your safety and mine. He held her gaze for a long moment, then nodded. All right, but if you ever need someone to talk to, don't. Her voice was sharp, then softened. "But thank you." As she walked away, something twisted in her chest. Wilson had seen through her in ways no one else had dared. He recognized the signs, the rewired reflexes, the hidden scars, and he'd offered something she hadn't had in years. Connection. But connection was dangerous. Connection could be exploited. And if Afghanistan had taught her anything, it was that trust got people killed. Why did the night feel wrong? The ship never truly slept, but the hours between midnight and 4 came close. A skeletal crew worked under floodlights on the flight deck, tending to the next day's aircraft. The sea breeze whispered cool across the steel, salt on the air. Morgan stood near the island structure, alone in the shadow of towering radar masts, watching black water slip past in silence. For a moment, she let herself pretend the world was still. Couldn't sleep either. She turned, stood a few feet away, uniform immaculate even at this hour, cap tucked under his arm. His voice carried the gravel of a man who rarely slept and never easily. "No, sir." He joined her at the railing, both of them watching the night operations in silence. Floodlights painted ghostly halos around crew, moving like distant marionettes on wires. "I pulled your real file," said finally. "What's left of it?" Morgan said nothing. "Your team was after Faird," he continued. "High-value facilitator between Taliban cells and al-Qaeda leadership. Intel said he was meeting in a compound in the Hindu Kush." "That information is classified," she murmured. "Was corrected. Was confirmed killed in a drone strike 3 years ago." He turned, studying her profile against the deck lights. "What wasn't in the file was how your team was compromised." Morgan kept her eyes on the horizon. "We were set up. The compound was empty. No guards, no patrols, just explosives and prepositioned gun nests. They knew exactly where we'd be and when. You believe someone from our side fed them that intel?" "I know they did." Her voice sharpened, low but certain. "Our insertion plan was known to fewer than 20 people, all with top-level clearance. That ambush was impossible without inside knowledge." Nodded slowly. "And that's why you're hiding, because whoever betrayed your team might come after the sole survivor." "They would," she said, "if they knew I was alive." A helicopter approached the ship, its rotors chopping the night air. Both of them watched as it was guided down to a landing spot, deck crew moving in crisp rhythm. "There's something else," said. Morgan finally looked at him. "With respect, Admiral, there are a lot of things I'm not telling you." "Fair enough." He let it go, surprising her. His voice softened. "You know, I've watched you these last few days, the way you move, the way you think. You see trouble coming before it arrives. You're wasted pushing ammunition carts." "That's by design." "Is it, or is it punishment?" Her head snapped toward him, eyes narrowing. "I think you blame yourself," he said, calm as a scalpel, "for surviving when they didn't." Her chest tightened like a vice. "I think pushing carts is your penance." "You don't know what you're talking about." "Don't I?" His voice was quiet but unyielding. "I've seen it before. Survivor's guilt. It eats at you, makes you question why you lived when better people died." "I was the point person," she said, her voice almost breaking. "It was my job to spot danger. I felt it. I didn't call it fast enough, didn't act fast enough, and they died." "No," said firmly. "They died because someone betrayed them. That's not on you." "You weren't there." "No," he said softly. "But I've commanded men in combat. I know the second guessing, the what-ifs. And I know burying your abilities doesn't honor their memory. It wastes it." She had no answer for that. "Whatever you're running from," said, "it found you the moment that drum broke loose. You can't that bell." Before she could respond, the ship's general announcement system crackled to life. "Admiral, report to the bridge. Admiral to the bridge." He straightened. "Duty calls." He started to walk, then paused, glancing back. Think about what I said, Riley. Ghosts can't change the world. Only the living can. Then he was gone, leaving only his words behind, echoes in the night. Morgan stayed by the railing, staring into the black water. The breeze carried the smell of ozone, sharp and metallic. Something was coming, she could feel it. The same cold itch she'd felt in those mountains. Rain came first, soft, sparse, tiny pinpricks against steel. Morgan's eyes tracked movement, subtle, out of place. A communications technician, name tape reading Reeves, cutting across the deck toward a restricted junction room, moving fast, too fast, eyes flicking over his shoulder. He disappeared inside. Her instincts screamed. Then the 1MC system crackled overhead. Attention all hands, weather alert. Severe storm system approaching from bearing 045. All departments initiate heavy weather protocols. Flight deck personnel, prepare for condition 1. Morgan looked up. Clouds had thickened, but not enough for a sudden Category 2 storm. Her skin crawled. She turned and strode into the island structure, slipping into the weather monitoring room. 2 meteorology techs hunched over their screens. "This makes no sense," one muttered. "Clear 15 minutes ago, now showing a massive front bearing right at us." "Satellite imagery," Morgan ordered. The senior tech glanced at her, startled. Who are you?" "Satellite imagery, now." He hesitated, then pulled it up, his brow furrowed. "That's weird. Satellite shows light cloud cover. Nothing like this." Morgan stepped closer. "Your radar system is compromised." "That's impossible," the second tech said. "These systems are air-gapped." "Nothing is air-gapped," she said, thinking of Reeves. "Call the bridge. Tell them your radar and satellite data don't match. Request visual confirmation." They still looked confused, but one picked up the phone. Morgan didn't wait. She was already moving. By the time she reached the bridge, was there. Officers clustered around glowing consoles, tension sharpening the air. "Admiral," she said, walking straight in. Heads turned. A loader had no business on the bridge. Eyes cut to her. "Riley, your weather radar is being spoofed. Satellite imagery and visual conditions don't match. Someone is feeding false data." The bridge went still. Commander Phillips stepped forward, bristling. "How would you even?" "Go on," said, cutting him off, eyes never leaving her. "I saw a comms tech, Petty Officer Reeves, entering a restricted junction box. No reason to be there. If the radar's compromised, other systems could be too." Phillips said, "Verify weather data through multiple channels. Full diagnostics on all sensors." They moved quickly, drew her aside, his voice low. "You're certain?" "No, sir, but my instincts are rarely wrong." "Stay," he said. "I want your eyes on this." An hour later, the truth came out. The radar was showing phantom data. So were internal cameras. Navigation was glitching. Communications lagged. Systems across the ship blinked, faltered, then returned like a heartbeat skipping. "It's malware," reported grimly. "Internal source has to be." His jaw tightened. An inside job. Morgan felt a cold spike in her chest. History repeating. Outside, the sea had grown choppy, though nowhere near the storm their radar displayed. Rain streaked sideways across the deck. "Message from Flight Ops," the communications officer called out. "Inbound helicopter from the supplies transfer, reporting fuel issues, requests emergency landing." Frowned, "Tell them to divert." "Negative, sir, not enough fuel." He cursed under his breath. "Prep the deck." Morgan's instinct screamed. "Admiral," she said quietly, "this timing is too clean." He glanced at her, then the growing situation. "We can't risk losing a crew. We bring it in." "Then let me go to the deck." He hesitated, then nodded once. "Go, eyes open." The wind hit her like a wall as she stepped onto the deck. Rain lashed at her face, blurring the chaos of motion. Crew scrambled to secure loose gear as the ship rolled. Above, the helicopter's lights bobbed through the rain, descending. She studied its approach. Too shallow, too fast, erratic. She keyed the radio she'd snatched on her way out. "Bridge, this is Riley. That Hello's approach is off. Request verification of its identity." "Static then, checking now." The helicopter dropped lower, engines howling. Morgan moved closer, boots skidding across slick steel. She saw the pilot through the windshield, visor down, face obscured. "Riley's voice crackled. "That transponder doesn't match this flight log. It's not one of ours." Her blood iced. "Bridge, potential hostile. Clear the landing zone now." No one moved. No one was used to taking orders from her. "Clear the zone," she roared. Something in her voice cut through the chaos. The flight deck officer echoed the order. Crew scattered. Wilson was among them, looking confused, glancing at her as he ran. The helicopter hovered 30 feet above the deck, then banked hard, circling. "All hands, general quarters," his voice boomed through the 1MC. "This is not a drill, battle stations." Red lights strobed, sirens screamed. The helicopter swept in low on a second pass. CIWS guns swiveled to track but held fire, too risky over the deck. Then its side door slid open. Black-clad figures emerged, fast stroping down. "Hostiles armed." "Bridge armed boarding attempt," she shouted. "4 hostiles on deck." Static, comms jammed. She sprinted to the nearest weapons locker, punched in an emergency override code she shouldn't know, and pulled an M4 and 3 mags. Rounds slammed into the deck near her as she dove behind an aircraft tie-down. The first hostile hit the deck running. She popped up and fired a 3-round burst. He crumpled. The others scattered, taking cover. Gunfire erupted, security forces finally pouring onto the deck. Muzzle flashes strobed in the driving rain. Morgan moved cover to cover, calm and precise. Her mind slid into old grooves. This wasn't new. Adrenaline sharpened her world into perfect clarity. She dropped a second attacker as he tried to flank the security line. The helicopter circled overhead, door gunner spraying the deck with suppressive fire. Bullets pinged off steel. Morgan rolled, came up firing. Through the chaos, she spotted Wilson, crouched behind a jet wheel, exposed, frozen. One of the attackers saw him, weapon rising. Morgan broke cover, firing on the move. Her shots forced the hostile back behind a generator. Wilson bolted for better cover. The firefight lasted less than 3 minutes but felt like hours. One attacker down, another dead, a third wounded and captured. The last leapt for the helicopter's skid as it banked away into the storm. Silence crashed down like a wave. Rain hissed on hot steel. Morgan lowered her rifle, chest heaving. The mask she'd worn for years had shattered completely. Why did he know her name? The captured hostile lay on the rain-slicked deck, blood seeping from his shoulder wound, breath coming in ragged gasps. His mask had been torn off. A stranger's face, but his eyes, calm, cold, calculating, were the kind Morgan had seen before on men who worked in shadows. She knelt beside him, rifle slung across her chest, fingers tightening on the sling. "Who sent you?" she demanded. The man's lips curved, faint but real. "You're supposed to be dead, Lieutenant Riley." Her blood went cold. He knew not just her name, her rank, who she really was, what she was supposed to be. Dead. Before she could ask another word, security personnel swarmed in, weapons leveled. "Stand down, petty officer," the security chief barked. "We'll take it from here." Morgan rose, slow, deliberate, eyes never leaving the man. They hauled him away, his faint smile lingering like a stain. The cold settled deeper into her bones. Whoever had betrayed Ghost Team, they knew she had survived, and now they had come for her, and for the ship. She found Wilson waiting in a passageway just off the flight deck, soaked and wide-eyed, adrenaline shaking his hands. "That was some shooting," he said, voice thin. "You've done this before." It wasn't a question. "Go to your station," Morgan said. "Forget what you saw." "Kind of hard to forget you saving my life again." His gaze didn't flinch. "You're not just a loader, are you?" She sighed. "No, I'm not, and that puts you in danger just knowing it. I figured that out when people started shooting at us." He hesitated, then held up a small black flash drive between thumb and forefinger. "I pulled this from the junction box where that comms tech was. Found it after I saw you following him." Morgan stared. "You were tracking me." "You seemed off after our last talk, so I followed you. When the alarms went off, I checked where he'd been." She took the drive slowly, cold plastic, heavy as lead. "This could be important," she said quietly. "Thank you. Now will you tell me what's going on?" Morgan hesitated, then shook her head. "Someone's trying to take control of this ship, with inside help. That's all you need to know." Wilson opened his mouth, but the ship's 1MC system cut him off. "Petty Officer Riley, report to the Admiral's quarters immediately." Riley to the Admiral's quarters. Morgan pocketed the drive. "Keep your head down," she said. "And if you see that comms tech again, don't approach him. Find me." Wilson nodded. "Be careful." She didn't answer. His quarters were crowded when she arrived. Rainwater still dripped from her uniform onto the polished deck. Stood at the center, ringed by his senior officers, Phillips, the security chief, and a naval intelligence officer Morgan didn't recognize. Riley said, acknowledging her with a nod, "Good work on the flight deck. Report." Morgan's body straightened by reflex, years of training locking her into a formal briefing stance. 4 hostiles boarded from an unidentified helicopter. 2 KIA, 1 captured, 1 escaped. Highly trained. Special operations background. She drew a slow breath. The captured hostile recognized me, by name, by rank. A ripple passed through the room, disbelief, unease. His eyes stayed on her. What else? The attack was coordinated with a cyber intrusion, false weather data, comms disruption. And she held up the flash drive. This was recovered from a junction box where a comms tech had no reason to be. Possible malware or control script. I said, "I'll analyze it immediately," replied, already moving. "What about the prisoner?" asked the security chief. "Being treated in sick bay, sir. Heavy guard, no statements yet." "He will," said, his voice was steel. "Once he's stable, I want him interrogated. Riley, you'll assist." "Sir," Phillips interjected carefully, "with respect, Petty Officer Riley is an ammunition loader. She has no authority or training for interrogation." "What you saw on that deck," cut in, "was not beginner's luck. Riley has skills this ship needs. Any objections?" Phillips swallowed. "No, sir." "Good." Turned to the intelligence officer. "Hayes, coordinate with Fleet Command. I want to know how an armed helicopter crossed our perimeter without being challenged." As the officers moved to their tasks, stopped Morgan at the hatch. "You took a risk exposing yourself," he said once they were alone. "There wasn't much choice." "No, there was." His gaze locked on hers. "That prisoner recognized you. What does that mean?" Morgan's jaw tightened. "It means whoever betrayed my team knows I'm alive, and they're connected to this." "That's a large leap." "Is it? Someone inside compromised our systems, coordinated a boarding assault, and one of them knew who I really am. That's not coincidence." Considered her words. "Then what are they after, this ship or you?" "I don't know yet." She hesitated. "Sir, I'd like permission to investigate the comms tech who planted this drive. Reeves." "Granted, but take backup. If he's involved, he's dangerous." "One more thing," she added. "A sailor named Wilson found this drive. He knows I'm not who I seem to be." Can he be trusted? I think so, he's persistent. Keep him close, said. We need all the allies we can get. He moved to his desk, picking up a secure satellite phone. I'm contacting JSOC and CIA. If this ties to Phantom Echo, we need answers. She turned to leave, but he stopped her. Riley, be honest. Do you know who betrayed your team? Her eyes darkened. I have suspicions, nothing concrete. When this is over, said quietly, I want those suspicions, all of them. Yes, sir. As she left the Admiral's quarters, the corridors seemed narrower, the air heavier. She walked, but her mind drifted. Back to the mountains. Back to the sound of gunfire snapping like dry branches, to the smell of burning flesh and cordite, to Mitchell's last breath on her cheek. Live, that's an order. Fire in Weapons Magazine 3. All hands, damage control teams respond immediately. The announcement tore her back to the present. Her blood iced. Magazine 3. Where she had been heading to look for Reeves. She broke into a run, boots hammering steel, shoving past startled sailors. The ship was 5,000 souls and 90,000 tons of steel, but right now it felt like a coffin. If the fire reached the stored ammunition, it wouldn't just cripple the Sentinel, it would kill everyone aboard. Smoke poured from the magazine entrance, acrid and thick. Chaos reigned, damage control teams shouting, dragging hoses, colliding in panic. Lieutenant, she barked, spotting the damage control officer. How close is it to the ordnance? He blinked. Who are? How close? Too close, admitted. Main suppression system failed. We're trying manual, but... Get me an OBA and a fire extinguisher. You can't go in there. I know that layout better than anyone on this ship, she snapped, which was true. Every second you hesitate brings us closer to detonation. Hesitated, then nodded. A petty officer shoved an oxygen-breathing apparatus into her hands. Moments later, she disappeared into the smoke. The heat hit like a living thing, waves, clawing at her skin even through her gear. Smoke swallowed her sight, thick and choking. She kept low, sweeping with the extinguisher, carving a path toward the auxiliary suppression panel. It had been smashed, wires torn, metal dented like someone had attacked it with a wrench. Sabotage. Plan B. Each ammunition bay had a manual suppression valve. If she triggered them fast enough, she might contain the blaze before it hit the stored rounds. She moved fast. One valve engaged. Foam cascaded, hissing over crates. Second engaged, more foam. A section of ceiling gave way. Burning debris crashed down. She dove forward, the shockwave rattling her teeth, losing her extinguisher behind the wall of flame. The way back was blocked. No exit but forward now. The third valve was smashed beyond use. Her pulse spiked. Without it. The emergency cooling system. Last resort. It would flood the entire magazine with halon gas, suffocating the fire and anything still breathing. Her OBA was nearly out of air. She didn't hesitate. She smashed the safety glass on the activation lever and yanked it down. Warning klaxon screamed, halon discharge imminent, evacuate. White gas poured from ceiling vents. Morgan sprinted through the smoke-choked maze, lungs burning, vision narrowing. She found the emergency escape hatch, spun the wheel with blistered hands and forced it open, pulled herself through, sealed it just as the halon filled the room behind her. Then she collapsed in the access corridor, tearing off her mask, dragging air into scorched lungs. Alive. The ship is still whole. She stumbled into the bridge 20 minutes later, hands wrapped in burned dressings, uniform charred. Turned, eyes widening. Report, he said. Fire contained. Emergency cooling system activated. Magazine secure, she rasped. Sir, the suppression controls were physically damaged. Deliberate sabotage. Reeves said darkly, Wilson spotted him near there. He studied her burned hands. You need medical. I need to find Reeves. You can barely stand. That's an order, Lieutenant. Medical now. We'll handle him. Morgan wanted to argue, but she couldn't even feel her fingers anymore. Yes, sir. Sick bay smelled of antiseptic and exhaustion. Medics worked over her in silence, wrapping her hands, forcing oxygen over her face. Her mind spun. Weapons, sensors, comms, now fire control. This wasn't random chaos. It was a sequence, someone dismantling the ship piece by piece. And they knew who she was. They were coming for her. For a moment her chest tightened, not with fear, with something colder. Resolve. Riley. She opened her eyes. Wilson stood at her bedside, soaked, breathless. They found Reeves, he said. He's dead, throat cut. Morgan's gut sank. He wasn't working alone, she said. No, Wilson said quietly, and there's more. Security found a satellite phone hidden in his quarters, encrypted. I need to see it. Admiral says no. Orders are you rest. He'll brief you when they know more. Her jaw clenched. Wilson lowered his voice. The prisoner, he's talking. Hayes came out of the room looking like he'd seen a ghost. A ghost? The word twisted in her chest like a blade. Wilson, she said softly, find out what that prisoner said exactly. He hesitated. That's heavy clearance. You found that flash drive. You're resourceful. He studied her a moment, then nodded. I'll try, but you have to rest. She almost smiled. Thanks for the vote of confidence. After he left, she lay back. Not to rest. To think. Afghanistan, Reeves, malware, the boarding, the fire, all threads of one net. And at the center, 7 years old and still bleeding, was betrayal. Why did he look like he'd seen a ghost? Wilson was waiting outside sick bay when Morgan slipped out against orders, hands still wrapped in white bandages. His eyes were wide, unfocused, as though part of him was still somewhere else. What did he say? She asked quietly. He flinched. How did you? Wilson, please. He swallowed. I wasn't supposed to hear it, but I was delivering something to the intel room. They didn't see me outside the door. He hesitated, voice dropping. The prisoner called you by name again. Lieutenant Riley. Said he knew you, survived Phantom Echo. Said the ambush was ordered. Morgan's stomach clenched. By who? She whispered. Wilson's jaw worked. He said a name, just one word. Viper. The corridor seemed to tilt around her. Viper. A cold, familiar though she couldn't place it. A shadow from the mountains, faceless but close. A whisper from another life. Wilson shifted. He also said you were supposed to die, that you're the only loose end. Morgan exhaled slowly through her nose, anchoring herself. Where is he now? Still locked down. Hayes and the Admiral are deciding what to do with him. She nodded once. Thank you, I'll handle it from here. Wilson's voice caught as she turned to go. Riley, be careful. They're scared of you now. She paused. Who is? Everyone. His eyes were raw, honest. The crew saw you fight on that deck. They saw what you are. They're whispering that if you're here, it means war is coming. She almost smiled. Maybe it already has. The secure intel room was dim and cold, lit by monitors glowing pale blue. Hayes stood outside the door, arms crossed, jaw tight. He eyed her bandaged hands, then her face. You're not cleared for this. I don't need clearance, she said. I need the truth. Before he could reply, the door opened and stepped out. His eyes met hers and held. Come in, he said. Hayes turned, startled. Admiral. She's read in, cut him off. Effective now. Hayes' jaw tightened, but he stood aside. Inside, the air reeked of sweat and blood. The captured hostile sat chained to the deck, wrists cuffed, shoulder wound dressed but seeping through. 2 Marines flanked him. His eyes glittered like polished stone. He smiled when he saw her. "Lieutenant Riley," he said, "the ghost of the Hindu Kush." She didn't flinch. "Who sent you?" He leaned back. "Your own people." Stood at her shoulder. "Name?" "Viper," the man said softly. "You remember him, don't you?" Morgan's hands twitched against her sides. "There was no one by that name on my team." "Not on your team," he said. "Above it, the one who fed your insertion plan to people, the one who ordered the trap, the one who signed the kill list with your names on it." Her mouth went dry. "Why?" she asked. "Why kill us?" "You were pawns on a board you couldn't see," he said, his tone almost gentle. "Ghost team was sent not to capture but to die there. Their deaths were the distraction, a decoy to keep attention off the real mission." "What real mission?" "Operation Black Raindrop," he said. "Ask your Admiral, he's seen the name." Stiffened beside her, very slightly. The prisoner smiled wider. "Oh, he hasn't told you." Morgan turned, searching his face. His eyes were stone, but something flickered behind them. Recognition, regret. "You knew," she whispered. "I knew of it," said, "not what it entailed." "You lied to us," she said to the prisoner, voice shaking with fury. "We trusted our intel, we trusted our own." "And they betrayed you," he said simply. "Because war isn't about honor, it's about control, and you were expendable." Morgan felt something tear inside her chest. A hollow place she'd kept sealed for 7 years cracked open. "Where Viper now?" she forced out. "Everywhere," he said. "Nowhere. The man you knew by that name has had many faces. He wears one now inside your own chain of command." Her stomach turned to stone. "Who is he?" she said. The man leaned forward, chains clinking. His voice dropped to a whisper. "He's already here." The lights flickered, then went out. Darkness swallowed the room. Someone cursed. A Marine shouted. Boots scrambled. Emergency red lights flared to life, bathing everything in blood. The prisoner was gone. His chains lay on the deck, sliced clean through. An access hatch hung open behind his chair. His voice cracked like thunder. "Seal the deck. Lock down the ship. Find him." Hours later, the Sentinel shuddered under her own weight as bulkhead doors slammed shut across her decks. Every passage patrolled. Marines at every hatch. But the prisoner had vanished, as if dissolved into steel. Morgan stood in the Admiral's quarters with Hayes. Maps and diagrams spread across the table between them. Her bandaged hands curled against the edge of the table until her knuckles ached. "This wasn't just an escape," she said. "It was planned, timed with the blackout. Someone on the inside helped him disappear." Hayes shook his head. "He can't get off this ship." "He doesn't need to," Morgan said. "He's not running, he's repositioning." Hayes frowned. "For what?" "To finish the mission," she said. His voice was low. "Which is?" Morgan looked at the ship schematics spread under the red lamp. "Cripple the Sentinel, kill the Admiral who might expose him, and kill the only living witness to Phantom Echo." Her voice sharpened. "Me." Silence pressed the room tight. His eyes met hers. "Then we end this together." She returned to her berth but didn't sleep. Couldn't. Her hands throbbed beneath the bandages. Her body ached, but her mind ran like a machine with stripped gears, turning on fragments, whispers, old after-action reports burned into memory. Viper, Operation Black Raindrop, a betrayal no one had ever acknowledged. They hadn't just killed her team. They'd used them. A disposable distraction. She saw their faces in the dark. Mitchell, Williams, all of them, ghosts pressing close. She whispered their names like a prayer. At 400, a message came from secure line, 2 words. Ready to hunt. The intelligence center was sealed when she entered. Only Hayes and a young cyber warfare specialist named were present. Screens glowed cold around them. "Decrypted the satellite phone," said. "It contained a fragment of a data drop. heavily encrypted, routed through 6 dead proxies. He nodded too. She pulled up a grainy still frame. A face. Older, clean-shaven, cold eyes. Morgan's breath caught. "Do you know him?" Hayes asked. "No," Morgan said slowly, "but I've seen that face, in Kabul twice, at once. He was JSOC or pretending to be." Viper said, "This photo matches 2 others attached to Operation Black Raindrop's planning team." And asked. "All names redacted," said, "but one credential marker matches the Pentagon, Strategic Operations Directorate." Morgan's voice was a whisper. "He's still active, he never left." Hayes rubbed his eyes. "If he's inside Stratops, he has access to every deployment, every movement of this ship." "Which means," said grimly, "he knew where to find you." Morgan's heart pounded. Viper, the ghost behind the curtain, the man who had murdered her team from 1,000 miles away. And now he was reaching for her again, through proxies, through sabotage, through corpses. "I want him," she said. Her voice was quiet, final. "No arrest, no capture. I want him finished." Didn't flinch. "Then we'll have to draw him out." She looked at him. "How?" He met her eyes. "We use you." The room fell silent. Even the hum of machines seemed to pause. "You want to bait him," she said. "Yes." "You want me to announce to the world I'm alive." "Not the world," said, "just the right ears, leaked to channels he monitors, enough to make him panic." "Panic gets people killed." "Exactly," said. "We need him desperate, sloppy. That's when he makes mistakes." Morgan stared at the glowing photo of Viper on the screen. Her pulse hammered in her ears. The thought of exposing herself clawed at her ribs. She buried herself for 7 years to stay alive. To step into the light now would be like painting a target on her chest. But she thought of Mitchell, of his last words, blood bubbling on his lips. "Live, that's an order." She straightened. "Let's hunt." Why did it feel like stepping out of her own grave? The room was silent except for the hum of computers and the distant heartbeat of the ship. A single light glowed over the table where Morgan sat, still in her scorched coveralls, hands wrapped in fresh white bandages. Her hair was damp from a quick shower. The steam hadn't washed the weight off her. Stood across from her, arms folded. Hayes hovered by the door, jaw locked, and typed furiously at a console, lines of code cascading like falling rain. "Once this goes out," said, "there's no going back." "I know. You'll be exposed, to him, to anyone watching those channels." "I've been hiding for 7 years," she said. "Hiding didn't keep my team alive." Studied her for a long moment. "Then let's bring him into the open." The message was simple, precise, deceptively casual. A data packet seeded into black market military forums and backchannel networks where whispers of dead operators sometimes drifted like ghost stories. It contained 3 things. A surveillance photo of her on the deck during the firefight. Her name, Morgan Riley. And 1 sentence. Confirmed alive, reassigned to USS Sentinel. No signature, no context, just enough truth to ignite panic in the right man. Viper would see it. They knew he would. He had eyes everywhere. Sent the packet out at 2:47. No fanfare, just a keystroke and a nod. "It's done," she said. The trap was set. Now all they could do was wait. Morgan walked the ship like a ghost newly born. People stepped aside instinctively now, like water parting around a jagged stone. Conversations hushed when she passed. Whispers chased her like shadows. "That's her." Thought she was just a loader. Heard she killed 3 men on that deck. Admiral been meeting with her, alone. Their eyes were different now. Not the dismissive glance they used to give her when she pushed ammunition carts. Now they looked at her like something dangerous they didn't understand. She hated it. Visibility had been the enemy. Now it was a spotlight burning her skin. Even Wilson looked at her differently, still steady but with something new in his gaze. Awe maybe, or fear. "You okay?" he asked quietly when he found her by the forward railing, staring out at the black ocean. "No," she said honestly. He waited. "I thought burying who I was would be enough," she said. "But you can't bury something that still breathes. You can only chain it." "Maybe it's time to break the chain," he said softly. She almost smiled. "Chains keep people safe." "Chains keep people caged," he countered. She looked at him then, really looked. So young, still believing wars ended clean. He didn't understand what it cost to be free of chains, what it took from you. "I don't know who I am without them," she admitted. "Maybe," Wilson said, "that's what you're about to find out." The waiting was worse than battle. Every hour that passed without an attack stretched like wire pulled to its limit. The crew sensed it too. The air itself seemed to hum with static. People spoke in low voices, like loud words might trigger something hidden. Confine the core team to the secure command center, rotating rest cycles, though none of them truly slept. Monitored darknet channels for chatter, tracked ship systems for anomalies. Hayes coordinated patrols. Morgan sat by the screens, still as carved stone, eyes on every ripple in the data like a sniper on overwatch. Nothing, 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 until something. At 3:41 sat up, got something. Her voice cut the air like a blade. Everyone moved at once. "Encrypted message burst," she said. "Origin unconfirmed. Routing through 6 proxies. Final relay Dubai." "Content?" asked. "Fragmented," said, fingers flying. "Keywords clean up, loose end, strike window, and..." She froze. "And what?" pressed. She swallowed, phantom echo. Morgan's breath caught like wire around her ribs. "It's him," she said. Her voice was quiet, absolute. "It's Viper." An hour later, the bridge was locked down. Marines sealed the wings. Red lights bathed everything in a hushed glow. The message, decrypted, was worse than they expected. A cargo vessel registered under a shell company was on approach to the Sentinel's position. Automatic transponder. No human contact. Projected to pass within 3 nautical miles by dawn. Hidden inside its manifest, a compartment flagged as machine parts. When cross-checked, found the serials were fakes. The shipment didn't exist. "It's a Trojan horse," Morgan said flatly. "He's sending it loaded." "With what?" Hayes asked. "Explosives, EMP, cyber payload, could be anything." His jaw set like iron. "We can't risk it coming close. We intercept, board and search." "Sir," Hayes said, "boarding in open water is a risk." "So is letting it come alongside my ship," snapped. He turned to Morgan. "I want you on that boarding team." Every head turned. "She's not even on the roster," Hayes said. "She's the only one on this ship who's been trained for black site vessel interdiction," said, "and the only one Viper expects to be dead." Morgan said nothing for a long moment. "Then I'll go." She suited up in silence in the armory. The smell of oil and cordite wrapped around her like an old memory. The black tactical vest settled on her shoulders like it had never left. Wilson appeared in the doorway, out of breath. "You're going," he said. "Yes." "You're walking into a trap." "I know." He hesitated, then stepped closer. "When you come back." She waited. "Tell me about them," he said. "Your team, so they're not just names." Something flickered in her chest, small, bright, painful. "I will," she said softly. Then she walked out before it could break her. The boarding craft knifed through black water under a starless sky. The cargo vessel loomed ahead, rusted, silent, lights dead. The ocean slapped its hull like something trying to wake it. Morgan crouched at the bow, rifle ready, eyes locked on the looming shape. 5 Navy security operators flanked her, breathing hard inside their masks. They kept glancing at her. as if she might disappear. She almost wished she could. The vessel rose above them like a drowned city, no movement, no sound. The boarding hooks bit the hull, ropes snapped taut, they climbed. Salt spray stung her burned hands as she hauled herself over the rail, boots landing silent on corroded steel. The deck was deserted. His voice crackled softly in her earpiece. Team 1 status. Morgan whispered, "No contact yet." "Copy, watch your corners." She led them through the superstructure like a shadow. Silent hand signals, muzzle sweeping angles. The others followed, slower, less fluid. They weren't like Ghost Team. No one was. Every footstep echoed too loud in her ears. She reached the cargo hold. Stopped. The air smelled wrong. Sharp chemical. She signaled halt. Her eyes swept the stacked crates. Too new, too clean, bolted to the deck in patterns too precise for random cargo. She whispered, "Thermal scan." A pause. "Got it, wait. I'm reading heat under the deck. High output, like." The hold lit up in a sudden cold blue glow. A voice crackled through the overhead speakers. Calm, familiar, like oil on water. "Hello, Lieutenant." Her breath froze. "I was wondering when you'd crawl out of your grave." "Viper." The voice from her nightmares, finally given shape. "You're late," he said, "but then ghosts usually are." Her heart hammered. "Where are you?" she whispered. "Everywhere," he said, "and right now very close to ending you." She signaled retreat. "Fall back," she whispered, "it's rigged." Then the deck beneath them shuddered. A low, thrumming vibration rose through the steel. The heat spike on a screen jumped off the charts. "Riley, it's a reactor," said in her ear, voice sharp. "A microfission device, jury-rigged. It'll go critical if the coolant lines fail." "Time?" "Unknown, could be minutes." Morgan's voice was calm. "Get clear." "We're not leaving you," the lead operator said. "That's an order." They hesitated. "Go." They obeyed. She moved deeper into the hold alone, weaving through the bolted crates, heart steady. Focus narrowing. No room for fear, just lines, angles, systems. At the center of the hold, the false crates fell away to reveal a reinforced steel sphere, cables snaking from it like black veins. Its cooling system hissed faint steam. Viper's voice whispered from the speakers. "Did you really think you survived by chance, Riley? You were spared for this moment, to watch everything you protect burn." Her pulse slowed. "No," she said softly. "Because this time I'm walking out." She slung her rifle and reached for the reactor controls. Why did his voice sound like it knew her better than she knew herself? The cargo hold thrummed with an almost living vibration. Steel groaned faintly around her, old and tired. The air shimmered with heat from the sphere at the center, matte black, no markings, its surface sweating condensation in the swelter. The cables pulsed faintly like veins. Morgan crouched, eyes scanning, mind clicking into that razor space where emotion couldn't reach her. Fingers moved before thoughts fully formed, muscle memory older than her grief. The cooling unit hummed faint, uneven. A trickle of water dripped from a cracked pipe, sizzling when it hit the steel. She traced the lines visually. 4 coolant intakes, 2 output lines, redundant backups except 3 were severed and capped. Whoever had built this had meant for it to fail. Her calm earpiece crackled. Riley Status's voice taut as wire. "Confirm microreactor," she whispered. "Coolant sabotaged. If it overheats, this entire ship disintegrates." "Time?" She stared at the steam rising from the cracked pipe. "Minutes." "Extraction team en route." "Negative," she said. "Anyone else comes in here, it destabilizes the system. I'm alone on this." Static, then understood. "We'll hold perimeter, just come back." She cut the channel. Because if this went wrong, there wouldn't be anything to come back to. "Do you remember how they screamed?" The voice slithered from the overhead speakers, soft as silk over glass. "Viper." She kept working, didn't look up. "You talk too much." "They screamed when they burned," he said, almost lovingly. "When the mountains swallowed them, when the snow went red." Her hand stayed steady, disconnecting an access panel with her combat knife. The screws clinked softly on steel. "They called your name before they died," he whispered. "Mitchell did. Did you hear him? Or were you already running?" Her chest tightened. Her fingers didn't stop. "You lived because I let you," Viper murmured. "Because I wanted someone left to tell the story. But you didn't tell it, did you? You buried it. You buried them." Morgan's breath rasped in the heat. "I buried you," she said quietly. "You just haven't noticed yet." He chuckled, "Still pretending you matter." The panel came free. She slid it aside, revealing a tangle of coolant lines, pressure valves, heat regulators. One had been intentionally bridged to a detonator. Clever. When the coolant failed, the pressure would spike and trigger the overload. Booby-trapped. She felt her heartbeat slow, saw the system like a map in her head. Red lines, blue lines, pressure routes, failure paths, solutions like doorways, each locked. "I read your file," Viper said softly. "Top of your class, calm under fire, until the bodies started stacking. Then messy." She ignored him, cut the first bypass wire with the edge of her knife. The system hummed lower, just slightly. "Tell me," he whispered, "did you hold Mitchell's hand while he bled out? Did he beg?" Her hands trembled just barely. She tightened her jaw until her teeth hurt. "You don't get his name." "He said something to you, didn't he?" Viper purred. "Something heroic, noble. They always do. Did it echo in your ears while you crawled away through their blood?" Her vision blurred. She blinked hard. Focus. The second bypass line, she severed it. The hum dipped again. Heat slowed, steam thinning. "They died thinking they mattered," he said. "And you lived knowing they didn't." That cut deeper. Her hands froze above the third wire. Her reflection stared back from the black surface of the reactor sphere. Hollow-eyed, ashen, a ghost. She felt the weight again. 7 years of silence, of pretending to be nothing, of pushing carts in shadows because being anything else meant remembering how it felt to hear them die. She heard Mitchell's voice again, blood bubbling on his lips. "Live, that's an order." She had lived, but not really. She had walked, breathed, not lived. "Why me?" she whispered before she could stop herself. "Why spare me?" "Because you broke," Viper said, "and broken things are useful." Something in her cracked. The grief hit like shrapnel, sharp and hot and everywhere. She sank to her knees, bandaged hands pressed to her skull, breath shuddering. "You made me a ghost," she choked. "No," Viper said gently, "you did that yourself." And then she stopped shaking. Cold flooded through her veins, pure and steady. Not numbness. Clarity. The kind that comes when you accept the pain will never leave, but you stand anyway. She rose. "You're wrong," she said softly. "Am I?" "I'm not broken," she said. "I'm the knife they left behind." And she cut the third wire. The hum faltered, the heat dropped, steam faded. "Impossible," Viper hissed, the first crack in his perfect calm. "You don't know that system." "I don't need to know it," she said, working fast. "I know you." She traced the sabotage's logic, efficient, surgical, arrogant. She saw his mind in the design. The fourth wire had to be buried under the conduit. She it free, teeth bared, knife slicing insulation. "You think like a predator," she said. "Linear, predictable, overconfident." "Careful," he whispered. "Cut the wrong one end." She cut. The hum stopped. Silence crashed down. She froze, every muscle rigid. Then the coolant pumps surged back online. The temperature gauge bled from red into blue. The heat in the room began to fade. It was over. She disarmed it. She slumped against the reactor sphere, chest heaving, sweat streaking soot on her face. Her bandaged hands throbbed like broken wings. Viper's voice was cold now, metallic, no silk left. "You think you've won?" "No," she whispered. "I think you just blinked." "This isn't finished," he said. "You're still mine." "No," she said, standing, her voice steady, quiet. "I stopped being yours the moment I chose to live." His voice turned to static, then cut off. She stumbled out of the cargo hold into pre-dawn gray. The ocean heaved below. The boarding team waited by the rails, staring at her like she'd climbed from fire. "Device secured," she rasped. "It's stable." They exhaled as if surfacing from deep water. His voice came through her earpiece, taut with something that might have been relief. "Bring her home." She said nothing. The return to the Sentinel was silent. No cheers, no applause, just the sea hissing against the hull as the boarding craft cut through dark water. She sat in the bow, helmet in her lap, staring at nothing. 7 years, all the ghosts she'd buried, all the silence she'd wrapped around herself like armor. And now cracked. The armor hadn't saved her, it had just kept her frozen. She thought of Mitchell, of all of them, their faces pressed into her memory like fingerprints in wet cement. They hadn't died because they were weak. They had died because someone betrayed them. And that man was still out there, was waiting on the hangar deck as they returned. He watched her climb out of the craft like someone stepping through fire. "You stopped it," he said simply. "Yes." He studied her face. "And Viper? He's still out there." Her voice was calm now, cold as deep water. "But I'm not running anymore." He nodded slowly, like a general saluting a fallen banner raised again. "Then let's finish this." That night Morgan stood alone on the flight deck under a sky scattered with cold stars. The sea was black glass around her. The wind cut clean through her, stripping everything false away. For the first time in years, she didn't feel like a ghost. She felt sharp. Alive. She whispered their names again. Mitchell, Williams, Martinez, Cooper, all of them. The names rode away on the wind. "I'll find him," she promised them, "and when I do, you'll be free." Then she turned and walked back into the ship. Back into the war she had once tried to leave behind. Why did the air feel heavier, like the ship itself was holding its breath? The Sentinel glided through black water under a moonless sky, lights dimmed to combat levels. Inside her steel bones, deep below the flight deck, Morgan Riley moved through narrow corridors behind Admiral, boots silent on cold steel. The ship felt like a sleeping giant, but Morgan knew better. She could sense it in the charged stillness, a storm coiled tight. Viper was still here. And tonight they would cut him out. They had found him through silence. After the reactor trap failed, had backtraced the virus embedded in Reeves' flash drive. Buried inside its code was a dormant relay signal, something meant to trigger if the malware was destroyed. It pinged one location aboard the Sentinel. Not a workstation. Not a crew terminal. A hardened node buried in the ship's communications core. A place only senior command had access to. That was where Viper was hiding, or where his hands were. Hayes had protested sending Morgan, hadn't blinked. "He won't expect her alive," he said simply. "That's our only advantage." Now she moved like a blade unsheathed, quiet and sharp, the dim red lighting sliding over her shoulders as they descended toward the comms core. Glance back at her once. "We do this clean," he murmured. "Get what we need, no noise, no collateral." Morgan said nothing. Her hands were steady. Her heart was not. The comms core was a cathedral of cables. Black trunks as thick as her torso ran like veins into racks of blinking servers that stretched floor to ceiling, their cold hum filling the air like insect wings. The red lights flickered faintly overhead. Keyed the security panel. The armored door slid open on oiled hydraulics. Cold air sighed out, carrying the scent of metal and ozone. "Stay close," he said. Morgan followed him inside. It was too quiet. No crew, no guards, no movement. Only the faint pulse of blinking lights, like distant stars. They threaded through the racks toward the central control nexus, a glass cube at the far end of the chamber. Then Morgan saw it. A reflection. Someone inside the cube. A man. She froze. Followed her gaze, his jaw locked. They advanced. The glass door hissed open. He stood at the center of the room, hands clasped behind his back, clean-shaven, silver threading his dark hair, plain black fatigues with no insignia. Morgan knew his eyes before she knew his face. Cold, precise, patient as frost on stone. "Viper." He smiled faintly when he saw her, like a teacher watching a long-absent student return. "Lieutenant Riley," he said softly. "Alive after all, how inconvenient." Her breath caught. "You killed them," she said. Her voice was flat, hollow. "You fed our plan to, you slaughtered them." "I realigned resources," Viper said. "Your team's sacrifice allowed Operation Black Raindrop to succeed. We removed a strategic asset from the region without attribution. Clean, elegant. You used us as bait." "Yes. They were people. They were pieces," he said simply, "pieces that moved the board." Her fists curled, her bandaged hands throbbed. "They trusted you. That was their mistake. Stepped forward. You infiltrated my ship, tried to detonate a microreactor under my bow. You sabotaged my systems, murdered my sailors, and attempted to assassinate me." Viper's gaze flicked to him, amused. "I needed the Sentinel gone. You were collateral." He nodded at Morgan was the objective. "Why?" asked. "Because she lived," Viper said, "and living ghosts unravel empires." His eyes returned to Morgan. "I couldn't risk you surfacing. You know too much. You carry the fracture inside you, Riley. Survivor's guilt, shame. You can't survive in the light." "Watch me," she said. He smiled faintly. "Do you think this ends with me?" "It ends with someone," she said, "and tonight that's you." She drew her sidearm. Tensed, Riley. But she was already aiming. Viper didn't flinch. "Do it," he said. "End me, become me." Her finger tightened on the trigger. She saw Mitchell's face. The way his hand had gripped hers as his life left him. The way his eyes had begged her for something more than survival. Not vengeance. Not blood. Dignity. She saw the others. Williams, Cooper, all of them. Ghosts standing silent behind her, watching. Waiting to see what she would become. Her hands shook. Her breath came ragged. Viper's smile widened. "That's it," he whispered. "Break like I did." And she understood. Killing him wouldn't silence him. It would make him right. Her arm lowered slowly. The gun sagged at her side. "No," she whispered. His brow furrowed. "I won't carry you," she said. "I carried my dead long enough. I'm done carrying you." She stepped back, holstered the weapon. Stared at her. "Riley." "Record everything," she said. "Transmit it to Stratops, CIA, JSOC. Blow the whole operation wide open." His eyes flicked to the consoles, then back to her, and him. "Let him rot in daylight," she said. "It'll kill him slower." Nodded once. He moved to the console and began pulling logs, command records, hidden channels. Voice crackled faintly in their earpieces, guiding him through decrypting the relay cache. Viper stood silent as stone. When finished, he turned back. "It's done. Every agency that protected him will see this. He's finished." Viper's face was still calm, but his eyes cracked. "Sunlight," Morgan said softly, "is where ghosts disappear." She turned away from him. Did not look back. They left him chained to the deck as Marines flooded the chamber. No ceremony, no vengeance, just cold steel clicking shut. By morning, Viper was gone, taken by black-suited agents who arrived with no names and fewer words. His empire of silence collapsing under the weight of daylight. Morgan stood on the flight deck as the sun rose from the black horizon, painting the ocean in molten gold. The air was sharp, clean, alive. She had not slept. Wilson found her there, quiet at her side. "Is it over?" he asked. She watched the sun climb. The ship beneath her feet hummed like a giant waking from a long sleep. "No," she said softly, "but it's quieter." He studied her. "How do you feel?" She thought about it. The ghosts were still there. They always would be. But they stood farther back now, their weight lighter like shadows at noon. "I feel alive," she said. Wilson smiled faintly. "I think they'd be proud." She didn't answer. She didn't need to. Approached, hands clasped behind his back, eyes on the rising sun. He stopped beside her. "You could have killed him," he said. "Yes, but you didn't." Morgan's voice was quiet. "Killing him would have been easy. Living after is harder." He nodded just once, the smallest gesture of respect. "You're not a ghost anymore," he said. "Maybe," she said. "Maybe I'm just someone who came back." Studied her, then extended his hand. "Welcome home, Lieutenant Riley." For the first time in 7 years, she took it. As the sun rose fully over the endless ocean, the sentinel cut through it like a living blade. Crew bustled on the flight deck again. Planes lifted screaming into the sky. Life moved forward. Morgan stood at the rail, hair whipping in the wind, bandaged hands folded on cold steel. The metal was stitched beneath her sleeve, hidden from the world. Bronze center, black ring, eagle with wings reversed. Her ghosts were quiet. For now, she whispered their names one last time and let them ride away on the wind. Because she finally understood. They hadn't needed vengeance. They had needed her to live. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak. It simply endures and keeps walking.